Hi, welcome to this lesson. We're just going to do a quick little lesson on finding exact values of trig ratios. Just a little review here using our unit circle. So first let's try to find the angle when or the value of the trig ratio, when we're given an angle in degrees. So here we have sine 45. Now this is really quick. All we have to do is consult our unit circle, and we find wherever 45 degrees is, happens to be this line right here, and we have two values, root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2, so I guess it doesn't matter in this case because they're the same, but when we take the sine of an angle, it gives us the height or the y value, so in this case the answer is root 2 over 2, and we're done. So the tangent of 30 degrees now, so again, let's consult our unit circle. So tangent will give us the slope of this line formed by this angle here, and tangent is the rise divided by the run, so it will be the y value divided by the x value. So 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2, 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2, which is the same as 1/2 multiplied by 2 over root 3. And our 2's will cancel here, and we'll be left with 1 over root 3, and we can't leave a radical in the denominator, so we multiply it by root 3 over root 3. The denominator ends up as 3, and the numerator ends up as root 3. So we end up with root 3 over 3 as our final answer. Alright, cosecant of 210. Now this one will work a little differently because we're working with a reciprocal trig function. What I like to do is think about what the reciprocal function of this is, which is sine. So cosecant will be giving us sort of the reciprocal of the y value. So if we look at our unit circle, 210 degrees is this line right here, or this dot right here. And the y value is negative 1/2. So the sine of 210 would give us negative 1/2. And the cosecant is the reciprocal of that. So we take this and we flip it. So the numerator becomes the denominator and vice versa. And we end up with cosecant of 210 being negative 2 over 1, which of course we can just simplify as negative 2. And we're done. Alright, and the final one here, this is a cotangent. So again, I like to think of what the tangent would be, but in this case, we don't necessarily have to do it that way. We can just take a shortcut. Tangent is the y value divided by the x value. Cotangent is just the opposite, or the reciprocal, x value divided by the y value. So let's take a look at our unit circle. 120 degrees. 120 degrees is right here. The x value is negative 1/2. The y value is root 3 over 2. So negative 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2 is the same as multiplying by 2 over root 3. And this is just like one we've already done up here with the tangent of 30, except we have a negative value here. The 2's will cancel. We'll end up with negative 1 over root 3, which, as we know from before, will simplify into negative root 3 over 3. And we're done. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. If we're given the angle in radians, well, this works the exact same way. We just have to find which angle we're looking at. So cosine of 3 pi over 4. Now cosine will always give us the x value, or the x coordinate. So 3 pi over 4, you can find it right here on your circle. If you haven't got all your angles labeled in radians, or you don't have a unit circle, just think about pi is 180. So divide that by 2, you get 90. Divide it again by 2 would give you pi over 4, which is 45. And then just count 45s until you get 3 of them. So 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and that's 3 45s, which would give you 135. So here's our angle. We're taking the cosine of it, which will give us the x value right here. So negative root 2 over 2. And we're done. That's it. Okay, so the tangent of 3 pi over 2. Again, similar situation here. Tangent, we take the y value and we divide it by the x value. So find root, or 3 pi over 2, sorry. 3 pi over 2. Here's pi over 2. 2 pi over 2 would be right here. 3 pi over 2 would be right here, which is 270 degrees. Now, x is 0, y is negative 1. So negative 1 is y, and divide it by 0. Now, can't divide by 0, so this is undefined, and we're done. Finally, secant of pi. Secant is the reciprocal of the cosine function. So if we find cosine of pi and then just flip it, we'll have our answer. So let's look at our unit circle. Pi is 180 degrees, is right here. Cosine of pi will give us the x value, which is negative 1. So if the cosine of pi equals negative 1, that's essentially like negative 1 over 1. If we take the reciprocal of that, it doesn't matter. The negative just stays with the whole thing as a unit, and we get negative 1 as our answer. And again, we're done. Okay, the last bit of this lesson, I want to find all the trig ratios if we're given one. So what we're given here is the sine of our unknown angle theta equals 3/5. And we're told that this has to be between pi over 2, which is 90 degrees, and pi, which is 180 degrees. So that will put us into quadrant 3. So pi over 2 and pi. Sorry, quadrant 2, not quadrant 3. So finding the values of all the other trig ratios. Now, sine, we know, is y over r. So it's the height divided by the radius of whatever the circle is that you're dealing with. And cosine of that same angle will be expressed as x over r. And tangent of the same angle will be y over x. Now, essentially, the only thing we're missing here is x, but I'll show you how to find that in a second. So sine of theta equals 3/5, so basically y equals 3 and r equals 5. Okay. Now, if we look at our unit circle, we are somewhere over here. Y values will be positive, x values will be negative. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. Now, our radius is going to be 5, and essentially all we're doing is we're drawing a triangle in quadrant 2 that looks like this, and it has a height of 3 and a radius of 5. So how do we find this unknown value x? All we have to do is use Pythagorean theorem, okay, where b essentially will be represented by x in this case. So 3 squared plus our unknown value x squared, I guess we can write as equal to 5 squared, which is the radius squared. So x squared equals 25 minus 9. X squared equals 16. And x, of course, will be 4. But we know that it's in quadrant 2 because we're told that this is our domain. We have to stay within that quadrant. So x then gets a value of negative 4. Of course, when we take the square root of these things, we can end up with plus or minus 4. And then we just have to decide which value to keep and which value to discard. And we keep the negative because we're working in quadrant 2, where cos is always negative. Okay, so I have to make some space here. So now we have all the values we need to find the other 5 trig ratios. So all we have to do is simply plug them right into our formulas here. Cos theta is x over r. So that's negative 4 divided by 5. We're done. Tan theta is y over x, so that's 3 divided by negative 4. Of course, we don't put the negative specifically into the denominator, and we're done with the tan. Now the reciprocal functions, let's start with cosecant. This is the reciprocal of the sine function. So instead of y over r, it will be r over y. We already have sine, so cosecant is really easy. We simply flip the two numbers, and instead of 3/5 it becomes 5/3. And sorry, our next one will be secant theta, which is the reciprocal of the cosine function. It'll still be negative, but instead the 5 will be on top, and we end up with negative 5/4. And finally, our cotangent function, simply flip these two numbers, still be negative, and the 4 goes on top, and the 3 is on the bottom. And we're done. So I hope that helps. Get a lot of practice using your unit circle and solving problems like these, and you'll be doing it in your sleep in no time. Or I don't know, whatever. I was done. Okay.